Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, the guy who is always here talking with people that I find extremely interesting and that can help you. Today, my guest is Grant, and Grant founded onlinedegree.com with a mission to make higher education more accessible and affordable to everyone. Grant Aldrich. What's up, Grant?
Emmett, thank you for having me. That was the best intro I've ever had.
You know, I try, man. I have to make... See, here's the thing, and I understand this intrinsically. It is our job to recognize those outside of our eyeballs and to do the best we can to give them a great experience in our world.
Well, thank you. I've been looking forward to talking with you, and I'm joining. I'm a little nervous. I'm joining the ranks of some esteemed guests you've had.
You like my guest, eh?
I do.
I've had some good ones. Like, you know what? I'm trying to work up the courage to approach Angela Davis.
Okay.
Do you know who Angela Davis is?
No. Who is that?
She was a Black Panther. She was arrested in the 70s as a terrorist. And now she's a professor at, I think, UC Berkeley.
I've heard of her now that you're talking about this. I didn't know her name was Angela Davis, but okay. Yeah.
Check her out. Check her out. I mean, I literally, and I even have my topic, and it's based around feminism. Oh, I just can't wait. I finally got it up because she's so diverse that I said, hey, I'll have to do this. But thank you for being on the show. And your topic is the hot one, because I know that we are heading rapidly towards a collapse that is based around this particular subject. And I have some ideas on it because I have a lot of interaction with Europe, which means I actually can live there if I want. But they have a totally different outlook on education as far as after primary school. And it works really well. And most of their education is free, unlike here. And you help people navigate this, because I remember back when in the Stone Age, when I was getting ready to go to college, I didn't have a clue, not a one. So, like, what's holding most of these people back from, going to college, having that experience, and getting a degree?
Well, I think you just touched on a huge one, which is that, aside from being a high school student, where there's a whole apparatus of help and guidance, people that you can go to who will provide you some feedback and help on, what career or school is good for you. For the rest of us, the working adults, there is no good resource. There's really no unbiased set of people waiting around to help us. It's like they don't care about working adults. And that's a sad thing, because as we all know, we live in a pretty crazy time where all of a sudden, unlike any other period in history, the demand for new skills, whether because of technology or automation or globalization, is so fast and accelerating that we constantly need to be upskilling. And where do we go to get that kind of help?
Yeah, I actually said this a little while ago, and I pulled away from the proponent of college. And the reason is because actually you can develop the skills outside of an institution of higher learning. You have Coursera, you have Udemy, and the skills are so succinct today, and they're changing, that by the time you go through a 4-year curriculum, 2 of which are conversational, and you maybe not even getting into your chosen field till later on, that it may be outdated. But it's still so very important, because college has basically become high school. It's your GED. Every job is looking for it, and this debt thing is hanging over everyone's head. So why is this debt everybody's problem when there's so many other platforms coming out here as well.
Yeah, well, I think what you just touched on, by the way, and I agree with you, is that because I don't think anybody would argue that the benefit of having a degree is there, right? You know, in a job market where it's so competitive, a degree has been shown study after study to give you an edge, if all things being equal. And I think the sad thing, though, to your point, is that the cost of the degree has become so outrageous that it's tipped the scales, where now it's becoming less feasible for so many people. And that's what I'm really trying to do, is to rebalance those scales. Because you're right, with so much student debt in the world, we're talking now $1.4 trillion in the US alone. That's bigger than credit card debt. That's bigger than auto debt. So just to kind of wrap your brain on how big that number is, that means that people can't buy a home because they're paying off their debt, which means that your home may not be appreciating because there's not a lot of buyers out there because they got to make their debt payments. It means that they can't spend money at your business or at the company that you work at. It's just all going to pay off that interest. So it really is not just a problem for all of us individually, but a holistic, society-wide problem.
Yeah. I know some people who have college debt and they're doing everything they can to stave it off just because they want to live. I mean adults in their 40s and 50s who still have college debt because they said, to get this promotion, you need to go back to school, or to move forward, you need to go back to school. How can you help them?
You're right. And that's the problem, right? Is that we're all saddled with debt. And so was I, by the way. I left college with a ton of student debt. I went to a state school. Right? I mean, it doesn't get any better or more affordable if you're going to a state school. And it's the same thing. Yeah, it's a huge problem. So, what we're doing is my mission is to help make college more affordable, accessible for everybody. So here's the gist. You can go to onlinedegree.com, get started in 60 seconds. No interviews, no entrance exams. Start taking college level courses at your own pace, at your own schedule, 24/7, interesting stuff. And as you do, we've worked out pathways where you can get credit for those courses towards your degree at universities across the country. And then we also organize tuition discounts with universities. So not only can you save money with the credits that you're earning, you get a discount when you enroll. And we also provide all the support you need to get there. And we do it all for free.
What? You had me at free.
I had you at free. Yeah, it's free. And, and part of it was, so this was by design, actually. I'll tell you how we make it free. But really, when I first started with this, I was sitting around and I realized that there's a real problem for working adults. Just kind of what we were talking about earlier. If you're a working adult, you've got a job, maybe you don't have a job, but you've got family, you've got responsibilities, you're busy. And as you know, as we get older, we get more stubborn. We're less likely to change our habits. So it's very rare for adults to take that big step and say, I'm going back to school with everything in their lives. Because really, it's a big jump into the deep end of the pool. And so what normally happens is people want to go back and they never take that first step. So my goal was, there's an estimated 35 to 40 million people out there who is affected by this. And what our goal is, hey, let's help people wade into the pool. Get started, make it free, no impediments, right? Like no financial impediments, no psychological impediments. A lot of times people get stopped because, I've not been in a classroom for 15 years, or I'm scared of going back and seeing if I can be successful online. All that's gone. Hey, come in, start learning, start taking some courses, prove to yourself that you've got the ability to pass these courses, which you do. You've got the ability to budget the time and have the time management to finish it. And then you come in and make it work. So being free was a key part of it. And that's what's really so revolutionary, I think, about what we're doing. One of the things. And the way we make it free is that students, obviously the benefit for students is obvious. But for universities, it's a huge benefit as well. Because for universities, they always want good students. Students who are going to finish their program, students who are going to be more prepared when they get started. So because of that, they're the ones who sponsor everything on the website. And because they are looking for those really good students, they win as well.
And you have some nice universities, University of Maryland, Indiana Wesleyan University, Excelsior College, South New Hampshire University, Trident University, Grand Canyon University. So it's spread out over the United States, and you can have some kind of affiliate with your. Are there more?
Yeah, there's tons. So we've got pathways to over 1,400, and that number is just growing and growing. And a lot, like you said, private schools, state schools, all kinds of really big ones, small ones, all kinds of interesting schools. And we've, since we launched about a year ago, the university adoption has just been incredible because they see it. I mean, for everybody who works in higher education, they know that this is a huge crisis. And the people there want a solution. They want to make college more accessible. And so they've been really open arms with what we're trying to do and working with us to help people take that step. I mean, really, if it wasn't for the universities, we couldn't make this possible.
I'm an OG. That's original God. No, I'm kidding.
I've got a lot of questions for you.
Right. I know people are just going to give me flack for that, but that's all right. I stay in trouble. So, but automation is coming to fruition. It's here. As a matter of fact, we've moved into AI, and I'm a technology early adopter. And for my age demographic, I'm an alien because I realized that I can go back 15 years prior to my age group as well as current plus about 5 years. And I am still way above the curve about the technological changes, the adoptions that have been made in the market. So how can people who are maybe technically challenged, and I use technically as a broad sense, it could be your iPhone, it could be sending an email. Some people don't even do that. How can they stay ahead of this rapidly changing job market that requires you the understanding of automation and how the market's changing?
Well, I mean, I think you just nailed it. It has to be top of mind for every person. That's just it. Because it's going to, 10 years, it's already happening, but 10 years from now, I mean, robots are going to be intertwined with every single thing we do, just how the internet is now. And that's a very crazy thing to think about. I mean, robot cars, robots, changing the shelves at stores, bringing us food. It's going to be insane to really see.
Yeah.
So I think that what that does is that, again, unlike any other time we've ever lived in, 50 years ago, people would stay in the same job for 50 years, 40 years, their whole career, never have to relearn anything. Those days are over. And the faster that you realize that's the case and you stay on top of it, and is the better you're going to be. And it's not, it's nothing to be scared of. I mean, you and I both know it's nothing. This is all interesting stuff. And it doesn't take sitting at a library with a book for 10 hours a day. No, it does. It really doesn't. For example, you can come on our platform. It's easy to get started. We've built the system for every person. There's nothing complex about it. You just your browser, your phone, start taking a course that we have on Introduction to Robotics. It's a fascinating course, and it gives you a really good foundation on robotics. And you're going to be very aware of what's going on, or computer science, or any of these other fields where you want to upskill, accounting, marketing.
I see one that is so important to this current generation. This one class that you have, cooking, introduction to culinary skills. So many people cannot cook a chicken.
That course alone saved my marriage.
I bet it did. I mean, don't get me started. But, this is really awesome that you have, like you said, I'm on the site now. I'm looking at computer science, introduction to programming. And programming is such a diverse field now that it's broken off. When I was coming through school, it was BASIC and COBOL. Now you could just be web-based. You could be object-oriented. You can be micro-embedded. There's a lot of things that are very available. But one of the most important is economics. You really have some awesome stuff on here that you got me kind of pumped.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, everything is introductory. So when you come on here, one thing I wanted to do was make sure the courses were interesting, that, nobody wants to come back to school and take calculus. Just doesn't want to, right? Not to say that some people in engineering fields may need that, but nobody is super interested about that. So we really focused on things that would provide people broad applicability, interesting, cool stuff.
Yeah.
And the best part about it is that some people have the misconception that, let's say I want to take an accounting course, that, oh, well, that's only applicable for an accounting degree. Or actually, a better example would be, let's say I want to go back to school for criminal justice. And I would think that, oh, all I need is criminal justice courses. But that's not true. You have to knock out, a bunch of general education and elective courses as part of your degree. So most of our courses, when we work to articulate with universities, apply for those general education courses. So you could take our history course, right? Nice. Or that cooking course, save your marriage, and also earn some credits towards your degree.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, and this is for all of the guys out there. I have never had a problem with I'm going to say this politically correct because everybody knows me, with your sexual preference. For me, it was the ladies. I had no problem with them. You want to know why? Because I fed them. I fed them to where they were full. They were like, whew, I need to unbutton these pants. I'm like, you do that. Go sit on the couch. You'll be here a while.
There's some genius to that. I want that as the quote on this show, if you wouldn't mind, because I agree.
Just go ahead. I cooked for you. Yeah, go ahead. You can unbutton the top button. Go sit on the couch. You're going to be here a while. That works in all relationships. If you cook for someone, it's a wrap. They're not going anywhere because they're going to have that itis. And you can learn it at onlinedegree.com. Now, I want to go a slightly different route, but it's in the same vein. Traditional university, that approach, why is it still valuable?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're right that something you touched on, that there's a lot of places you can Upwork or upskill on today, right? Free resources, even YouTube, right? You can go and YouTube, learn almost anything. I'm on YouTube all the time.
I'm a brain surgeon because of YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. So, in fact, I don't even read a manual anymore. I learn everything on YouTube.
Right.
And it's so true. But there's so many careers, and well, actually, let me say, there's so many careers too and pathways you can take where maybe you don't need a degree. And I think that what's happened before is that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were prescribing that everybody get a degree. And that's not necessarily the case either, because I think now that's part of the problem is that I just read something the other day that we have a huge undersupply of welders, right? A difficult trade, takes a lot of skill. Yeah.
Say it again, my brother. Say it again.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these guys are making, $50, $70 an hour. Good wage.
Yep.
And I think that for some people, trade schools are a fantastic option. Maybe they can just learn on their own if they want to be an entrepreneur. It's not there. But for the overwhelming majority of the economy, no matter what you want to do, it still is one of the main factors in hiring. And again, I'm looking at just as today, but you have to think, right? Look at Wayne Gretzky's famous quote, I don't go to the puck, I go where it's going to be.
Yeah.
And 5 years from now, robots are going to wipe out trucking jobs. They're going to wipe out retail jobs. They're going to wipe out grocery and logistics. It's just going to be so widespread. It's going to be so competitive. You have to do it, and it's going to be more competitive than it is today.
So that sounds like coding is going to be the next thing, or coding and hardware. But speaking of which, you've already touched on a specific trend that will be prevalent in the future. What other trends that we might not see coming that you figure are going to be prominent in the future that we're just not have our eye on the ball of?
Yeah, I don't think people realize the impact that the robotics is going to take. I'll give you an example. So very few people know that on the roads now for, almost a few years, they've been already running robot trucking convoys on the road, meaning that from point A to point B, let's say on an open highway, that a truck is like two trucks in a convoy are going down the road with no driver whatsoever. And what people don't realize is there are 2 million trucking jobs in the U.S. alone. It's not like Europe, to your point about trains, and it's all trucking. And most of that is long haul, right? Not within a city, it's on the highways. And if all of a sudden 2 million trucking jobs where those guys actually make pretty good money. You know, they're driving a lot. It's a tough thing, but they're making 70, 80,000. They're doing pretty well. And you take that away all of a sudden. Wow. 2 million people with that kind of earning power. And that's just one industry. Those are the kinds of trends that I don't think people are fully grasping. And that's what's scary to me. And that, you don't read it all the time in the news. And so you're not preparing for it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I was thinking of something. I was telling somebody of a miracle that occurred last week. My wife had to go to Austria to do some work. She was there for 2 weeks, so I was super dad. I was doing that thing that I'm really not programmed to do, but I got it done. And I had a meeting that was started at 6:30 in the evening. My children were home, and the babysitter was coming, but she wasn't quite here yet. And I I video chatted my daughter while I was in the car. And then her only question was not, how are you, Daddy? What's going on? She was like, who's going to feed us?
Sounds like children.
Yes. To which I said, I will. And she's like, how are you going to do that from there? I was like, I'll send you food. And she's like, okay. So she hangs up and I said, text me your order and your brother's order. She texts me the order. And I said, your food is on the way. She sends question marks back. Do I need money? I was like, nope, Daddy's paid for it. And more question marks. So basically what I did was I got my children's order, went on DoorDash, ordered their food, had it dropped off at the same time the babysitter arrived, and it was a wrap. Let me tell you where I'm going with this. In the future, a human drove the food to my house. In the future, there may not be a human involved in that interaction outside of cooking the food, because it'll just be delivered by autonomous vehicle.
You're right. It's happening. I'm a pretty big, so I'm in the Nevada area, and the big electronics show every year is in Las Vegas. So I go usually to see all the new technologies, and they showcase all the new stuff. And one of the ones that was a big hit this last year was a robot that does exactly that. The robot car pulls up, right? And it's self-driven. A robot gets out of the car, picks your food, takes it to your door, rings your doorbell, and gets back in the car.
That's nuts.
It's happening. And, I think people look at this like, oh, it's sci-fi stuff. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen sooner than we think.
Yes. So how can someone make a difference? That's all I'm going to say. How can they make a difference?
Yeah. Well, again, back to the initial point of what's been stopping people is that usually the problem that everybody faces at this point is, aside from all of those impediments that I spoke about, right? Changing our habits, taking the first step, we're busy. It's the cost benefit. It's just gotten completely out of whack. And so now, with what we've done, it really brings it back into balance. So after you go through everything with our system, and you can save up to 35% on a degree. That's a big deal. And the schools that we work with are very adult friendly. So you could do it all online. They're already more affordable and well priced than a lot of the other schools. So for example, we work with Colorado State University, great state school, highly ranked online. Their programs are already affordable. Like, they've got a commitment to never raise tuition. In addition to that, they give our students a 10% discount. And then in addition to that, our courses, you can transfer in almost 30% of your degree through our courses to the school. So when you start laying all those things over, you not only can get there faster, right? Because you're doing it on your own time, get there way faster to the degree, which also is a big consideration if you're an adult. You could do it at a much more affordable price. And so, because before this, everybody always say, oh, scholarships, whatnot. But as adults, we don't take use of scholarships. Yeah. One, they're not meant for us. They're all meant for students in high school GPAs. And two, the whole point or the whole process of getting a scholarship is, I have to write 100 essays and start applying for all these scholarships in the hopes I'm going to get one.
True.
We're not going to do that. We're too busy. We don't have the time. So it's really most, and I'm of course generalizing, but for the most part, it's not feasible. So this case, you don't have to do anything. You come in, you just start learning. It's all there provided for you.
So let's digress a wee bit. How did you get to this? How did you, as an entrepreneur, venture on this path?
Yeah, I was really lucky. I've been in startups my whole career. And I was really lucky that I exited a couple of them.
They are awesome because you get a payday, don't you?
Exactly right. You basically eat ramen for like 8 years, and then you get this big payday, and then you don't know what to do with yourself. And I'm lucky in that my life didn't really change because I got used to that lifestyle. And I sat around. It was the best part about it. It gave me a period of introspection where I was really able to sit and ask myself, what do I want to do? And the first thing that came was that I wanted to be with my family every day. So I wanted to create something where I wasn't going to sacrifice. I wanted to be with my family. And I had little kids, or one that was about to be born, and now that multiplies. And then, I'm ordering them food, and then the next part was I wanted to do something very big in scope. I wanted to do something that made a difference. My previous life, I was working with helping pharmaceutical companies, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just didn't enjoy it every day.
Yeah.
So, my whole family was in education my whole life, and I had a lot of student debt after that. And I realized that, this is a big problem. How do I help make college more accessible and lower the price? And really what happened was the idea crystallized. I was talking with my then pregnant wife, and she was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And she was saying, how do stay-at-home moms ever go back to school? They have to manage the costs of the household.
Yep.
So they can't be spending a lot of extra money. They have no time. They can't leave the house or go to campus 3 times a week for a course. What are they supposed to do? And I said, you're a genius. That's it. But that doesn't affect just stay-at-home moms. That's every working adult in the country. And that was the genesis of the idea, was then basically from just that mission, figuring out the best way to do it.
So you basically just gave the formula for being an entrepreneur: solve a problem.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
I mean, that is the one thing that most entrepreneurs, if they're frustrated, find a problem that needs to be solved. And sometimes the problems are so obvious that you overlook them. I'm like, for instance, you know what my wife hates to do? She hates to go to the grocery store. So if someone came up with Shopper, or where she could just go to her phone and say, I need 6 cucumbers, I need baby formula, I need blah, 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 blah. And then she says, I'm leaving to go with my girls, and the groceries will be here in an hour. You'll be here, right? I'm like, yeah, I'll be sitting here watching Power. But, someone came up with the idea just like you came up with this idea. And often, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you don't just start off with all the resources that you require. You don't start off able to support your entire family, for many entrepreneurs. And sometimes you can come into a situation where you have to compromise your values. You have to name your price. How can an entrepreneur run a business without compromising their virtue and values?
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough subject. I agree. You know what I think comes down to? There's a phrase that I think before any entrepreneur gets started, there's something that they have to say to themselves, and it's a phrase that this is going to be the foundation of their role and what they're going to do. So they have to do it, and it's 2,000 years old. It's from ancient Greece, and it is know thyself. And what that is that in ancient Greece, over the temple of Apollo was inscribed the words know thyself, and Apollo was the god of wisdom. And the logic being, how can you know anything if you don't know yourself?
Yeah.
And I've found that with entrepreneurs, that when they come up with ideas, normally entrepreneurial people are really good at coming up with business ideas, right? And the challenge, of course, is coming up with the best idea, because you always have a lot of good ones, but you can only act on, let's say, one. And rarely do they take in, in their rubric, do they consider the things that are going to make themselves happy, or things that are not going to have them compromise, or not going to put them in bad situations with the realities of their finances. And I think that that's something that they have to know first, because then if you do know, and you really understand yourself and your situation, you will, from the beginning, ground up in the foundation, create a business model and a plan that's going to fit for you. And you won't run afoul of those situations. At least you won't run into it as severe as someone else would, and you'll know what to do when it happens.
So your business almost seems like a 501(c), where it's a nonprofit, and sometimes it's a problem keeping the lights on. Have you run into those situations?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. There's been, so actually, in the very beginning, I thought about doing it as a 501(c), but you know what? It was crazy. One of the things about having a nonprofit is that you can't be out in the marketplace earning money, right? Because if you earn money, then they say, well, then you're running afoul of what nonprofits do. So there's these rules about nonprofits where you have to either get your money from donations or tuition is an acceptable one. And there's these really strict rules. And I thought, well, if we're going to go away with tuition, right? Something that, wow, what a revolutionary concept. Can't we do away with something that should be done away with? Mm-hmm. That we would never be able to make sense under these rules. So I thought, okay, we're just going to be a for-profit, but you know what? We're going to be a mission-based company. And by taking that route, it's scary. You're right. Because if you really are mission focused, there can be times where you got to make payroll. It's scary. And you know what ultimately happens is that you're the one who just has to go without for a period of time, right? And when I write all the checks, my check comes last, if usually not at all. And that's just kind of the way it goes, because ultimately your belief, this is your baby, this is your dream, and you're going to work so hard to make it happen. And if you can't make payroll for 1 month, you're not going to let 1 month break you over what could be years of success.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Everything you've given us has been awesome. It's an awesome blessing for people to be able to, even if they don't aspire to something else, because sometimes just learning can give people purpose. Just having the access to knowledge can give people purpose. So I commend you for that, sir. And thank you for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
Emmett, yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. And I, honestly, for people who just want to go learn, I know I love it. I wish, one of the things we're going to be publishing more is I love the fan mail we get. It's a real thing. And it's a very rewarding thing, the impact that we're having with people. And yeah, man, honestly, I love going to work every day. First time in my life it's ever been like that. And I think that everybody, I know it's a weird thing to think about. Everybody talks about it, but no, it's not easy to love going to work.
It's not.
And, I talk a lot about it because I want other people to take the same approach and have something that they love to do as well, mission-based and something they believe in. Because really, it's a lot of fun.
All right, so I got this one personal question for you. How many times a week do you go to the gym?
2 times.
I knew it.
2 times, and actually my gym is at home.
Oh, you really have discipline, don't you?
I have to. I've got, my kids are so small that like when I leave the house, it's if I was going to take, by the time you get out of the house, you go to the gym, you drive back, it's like a 45 minutes to an hour swing.
Yep.
I miss so much. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. So I gave up more space. I said, I'm doing it at home.
Awesome, sir. Well, Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Emmett, thank you for having me, man. Really enjoy your show, and I'm honestly flattered to be on here with all the other guests you've had and get to talk with you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the day the Lord has made. You better rejoice and be glad, because guess what? You woke up. You were able to open your eyes. You're able to feel, if you're in the northern part of the country, how cold it was. This is really serious. I want you to actually live in a mode of gratitude, because my daughter called me the other day and she said, Dad, I need some help. And I was like, I got you. And I ventured over to her and I helped her out, gave her what she needed. And a lot of people trip and fuss and fight, but what I did? I smiled because I could give it. I was in gratitude. I helped a couple other people out. They asked me for something, just randomly, like, hey, let me get this. I was like, here. I gave my last $20 away this week, and I was happy. You know why? Because I had it. So if you have breath, if you have life, if you have sight, if you can feel someone else's hand, live in gratitude, because that is the billionaire lifestyle. Remember, when 2 portions of 2 different human beings met, and then it was sprinkled with the cosmic energy, They began to replicate this in this dance, and 2 to the power of 30 is over 1 billion cells. So before you even got onto the planet, stepped foot, breathed the air, felt the heat, felt the cold, you were a billionaire. The problem is you have problems with the experience. Stop it. It's not that bad. Some of us have it bad. You know you do, but if you're getting near the end of your rope, I'm going to tell it to you really simply. Tie a knot and keep hanging, because a better time is coming. And if you're just hanging there, you'll gather the strength to pull yourself up and steady your life. Till next time, love you all. Peace.